The series, released recently on Peacock, Ponies, is such a cock and bull story that I couldn't help myself listing the most egregious blunders. In the first episode, we see young Russian woman, obviously pretty well educated because she knows English on a good level.
Hi, you speak English, yeah?
She's buying and selling stuff on a street market.
Пошла вон! Я у буржуев контрабанду не покупаю.
Her name is a traditional, probably most popular Russian name for a girl, Ivanna. It's just as traditional as, say, Petra would be for a girl from London. A young Russian, educated, able-bodied woman is selling stuff on a flea market during the weekday in the 1970s in the Soviet Union. I mean, this is impossible. She rather would be either in college or in an office or on a factory or on a collective farm. The only people who would be on flea market would be older people who have spare time, who don't work anymore. But don't you worry, there is an older woman on the same flea market who sells eggs. What kind of eggs does she sell? They are in a factory-made packaging.
И два из них разбиты.
But there are 6 eggs in the box. And this would never happen because the Soviet packaging contains 10 eggs. So this woman sells eggs. Apparently she bought them in a retail store and she sells them for profit. So this is flipping. That was explicitly prohibited by the Soviet law. She could get up to 1 year in prison for that. Flipping and scalping did exist, but it wasn't as overt. Then there is a scene where B laments that she cannot buy good produce in Moscow stores and there is shortage of everything. In reality, American embassy would buy produce either directly from the United States or from Finland. They were mail ordering from Sears, so they didn't depend much on Soviet produce. And obviously it was also a security concern. Now this scene is just hilarious. The door, which is made of cardboard, the round knob instead of a lever, the light switch, which is distinctly American and is located at about waist level, while Soviet light switches were located at about head level, 160 centimeters. So this whole shot just screams that it's American. Now the most outlandish idea so far is that
earlier this evening a small single-engined aircraft crashed in a field 30 kilometers south of Moscow. I regret to inform you that both of your husbands were on that plane.
I mean, seriously, this is Soviet Union, this is not Guatemala or Nicaragua. This is very closed airspace. And nothing like this could happen in the 1970s. In this shot, B shows some words written in Russian and translates them into English. And the first time I was like, what is she saying?
It says winged horse over the entire world.
Wind horse. I had to turn on captions to read what is she saying. And she's saying winged horse. She translates it as winged horse for us viewers, and for Twyla, I mean, okay, Twyla, she came from some trailer in the middle of, nowhere. She probably doesn't know what Pegasus is, but we, as viewers, should know. So this alone tells you how much the creators of this show think of their viewers. So this Emil guy.
He's in French intelligence, and he is an expert on Moscow rules.
Vous venez d'où en France, Emil?
Okay, so he's not French.
He pretends to be French, but doesn't know a word of French. How does this work for a spy? Then he tells B that he was in Buchenwald and Auschwitz and shows his number, but his number is on his right forearm, whereas Germans were inking it on the left forearm. So what does it mean? Does it mean that he wasn't in German prison camp and this number is just fake? Or does it mean that the creators of this show simply didn't study the documents of Auschwitz? And then he tells B to go to the unit 415.
Apartment 415.
Emil explicitly tells B to go to 4th floor, unit 15.
4th floor, unit 15.
This is American numbering system. The Soviets used different system starting from 1 up to how many apartments the building had. Each building has several entrances. Each entrance has its own stairs and an elevator. And let's suppose there are 4 apartments on a floor. and the building has 10 floors. There are 40 apartments accessible from each entrance. In the first entrance would be 1 to 40, next one would be 41 to 80, next one would be 81 to 120, and so on. There are no holes in the numbers, and you cannot have unit number 415 in an apartment building like this where Sasha lives. Then B jumps from the balcony of the 4th floor into a dumpster, which is such a common trope in American movies. I'm really hard pressed to recall a European movie where protagonists would jump into a dumpster. Americans just like, to jump into dumpsters. But the point is that there were no dumpsters in front of, Soviet buildings. Obviously there were dumpsters, but they were somewhere in the courtyards, or they were moved away from a building, so you would have to walk 50 feet, 100 feet to the dumpster to throw away your trash. It wasn't directly close to the building. And then what is a dumpster? There are black plastic bags with trash. Just think about it. It's 1977 Moscow. People just had buckets in their apartments where they would throw all their trash, and they would take buckets outside and throw it into a container. So obviously the container would, smell, and there would be lots of rats and cats and whatnot. But there were no plastic bags. In this scene, there is a note that is pushed into B's apartment. And again, this would never happen in the Soviet Union because all Soviet apartments had thresholds. The entrance door is always made to be as sealed as possible. On the other hand, in a hotel, that would be possible because in a hotel you have flat floors everywhere. It's just easier to clean the rooms and corridors, so there are no thresholds. And actually the apartment where those women live, there are several shots where you can see there is a long corridor.
Hey, I was just heading out.
And in the Soviet Union, buildings like this with a long corridor and apartments left and right, they were called hotel-style apartments. They were considered lower quality than apartments with separate, entrances and stairs and elevators. I don't know for sure, but I don't think that employees of American embassy and consulate in Moscow lived in crappy hotel-style apartments like this. Now this scene is just hilarious. B meets with what's his name, Sasha, and gives him camera and tells him that the camera should be held
About 18 inches above what you're taking a picture of.
About 18 inches. Great.
and then she clarifies 18.3 inches above a document. This is Soviet Union. They use metric system. Why couldn't you convert it to millimeters before telling him in inches? But that's okay, he can convert inches to millimeters. But apparently she considers him an idiot because she gives him a string to measure 18.3 inches from a document to a camera.
You can use this to measure the distance, memorize it, and then burn the string.
How stupid is that? Because if she just gave him a number, he could just memorize it and there would be no trace on him. But now she gives him the stupid string, which he has to use. That's idiotic. Now B, she supposedly can speak Russian, and she does. The accent is very strong, but I understand it's a show, she's an actress. But then they have a scene specifically pointing to that. They're specifically saying, I'm asking her, where are you from, her kind of backstory.
И откуда вы? Родом в Советском Союзе.
Из Москвы. Недалеко отсюда.
What the hell?
Your accent is not Muscovite at all.
So we should make your origin someplace else. You're from Belarus. No! Her accent is not Belarusian, or Ukrainian, or Polish, or whatever, maybe Estonian. Why did they point out to her accent? Because before that, it was just a role that Emily played. It's clearly a Western accent. So this is a huge mistake on their part. Let's quickly talk about Sasha. The whole thing of Sasha's apartment in Moscow and his sister and B also sort of living there, I don't even want to touch this topic. The only thing that I want to mention that a young guy like Sasha and his sister, that just came from Kiev to Moscow, they wouldn't live in their own apartment. They would live with relatives or friends, or they would live in some sort of dorm, working in some kind of Moscow factory back then when Moscow still had factories. And those factories invited people from outside of Moscow to work on Moscow factories because the work was hard, the pay was low, and Muscovites didn't want to work there. So that's where they would live, in a dorm. Then later we see Sasha playing chess, and there is a girl walking by. She sits down, plays chess with him, and they start talking. Supposedly it's a Russian girl, but then somehow, inexplicably, he starts talking to her in Ukrainian.
Тобі подобається твоя робота?
Думаю, да.
Твої п'єси йдуть 3 години.
So how's that? Now the scene with train station. Train station we see in the series looks nothing like Belarusian train station in Moscow. Actually, it looks like Budapest Newgate station because the series was shot in Budapest. So why the creators of this show didn't use some CG magic and didn't transform this Hungarian station into Soviet station? I mean, a normal person would use some nondescript, apartment buildings, squares, roads, road signs, whatever, villages that you can use a Hungarian one for a Soviet one. But using a well-known landmark from one place as a stand-in for a landmark in another place, it's like using a New York skyscraper as a stand-in for Egyptian pyramids. This doesn't make sense to me at all. And when the train leaves the station, what kind of train cars are these? Are they like some 1920s German train cars that Soviets took from Germany as reparations or something like that? Is this how the creators of the show think of the Soviet trains? Because this is how Soviet trains actually looked like. After episode 5 I stopped caring. Episode 6 was a lot of sex. It just became a comedy show. A comedy show paint by numbers. White lesbian girl, black homosexual guy. All the previous cases of cinematic idiocy were just isolated incidents, but by the end of the season something happens that completely undermines the whole show and the premise for the show, because Dane travels from Moscow to Belarus and no one follows him.
I was told there is a spy in the village in Belarus. The Americans need you to follow this old woman.
There is a spy in the village in Belarus, and we need you to follow an old woman.
I'm confused. How are these things connected?
It's not your fucking problem.
This episode goes not just against historical reality, but against cinematic reality that the creators of the show invented themselves and offered us in the very first episode. The whole premise of the show was that KGB always follows male agents, but never follows female agents, because apparently KGB is so old-fashioned and cannot even imagine that women can be spies and agents. And that's why these two women were hired. So how come that Dane, who is not only male but black, travels all the way from Moscow to Minsk probably, and then to a small village, and he walks the street and no one looks at him, and there is no KGB tail, and he's able to do his spy things and dealings and interactions, and he is not followed? Because if he's able to do all that, there is no reason for hiring these two women, and the whole show just breaks apart. And someone may say, why I'm stressing about that? It's just a fun show for Western audiences. It's just a buddy show. Two women helping each other, fighting with crime and spies and stuff like that. But if it's just a buddy show, why Moscow? Why 1977? Why not set it in Budapest where they were shooting it? In this case, they wouldn't have any issues, with landmarks. Or why not setting it on the moon? No one knows what's happening on the moon aside of 200 astronomers. No one else knows about Sea of Tranquility or whatever other sea they have on the moon, or crater or volcano or whatnot. Set it on the moon or Jupiter, or in a galaxy far, far away that no one knows about, and then you make your buddy show. But instead of that, they set it in Moscow in 1976-77, and the question is why? And the answer is, it's not just a buddy show, it's a buddy show with a message. And what the message is, it's up for you to decide. But for some reason they set it in Moscow, and even actors speaking Russian, and some of them speak very decent Russian, because apparently they're two Russian-speaking actors. And considering all the efforts taken for the production of the show, these constant small and large errors and mistakes and faux pas in every episode is just so infuriating. These guys expect for the second season. I wouldn't. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment if you have watched the show. Please comment what you thought about it. Goodbye.